Haytham Faraj. He's a retired Marine Corps officer and lawyer, and he's joining us from Beirut, I believe. So, Haytham, just to get your reaction on what we're seeing right now in Ramallah as people wait for these prisoners, but also knowing that the Israeli raids in the occupied West Bank will continue.
Well, first, let me start by saying thank you to TRT. You're one of the few English language channels that is broadcasting what's happening. And it reveals exactly what the Palestinians have been fighting for. October 7 didn't happen in a vacuum. As thousands and tens of thousands of Palestinian prisoners languish in Israeli jails, the world was besides itself over the 1,200 that were mainly killed by Israelis and a couple hundred hostages taken by Hamas, many of whom were Israeli soldiers. So this is a day of celebration. I extend my congratulations to the Palestinian people, but I'm also aware that as these celebrations are happening, as we know, the Israelis are rounding up people just like they can, without trial, without an accusation that can live up in any real court, and they will continue to collect Palestinians and jail them.
Haytham, how important is it that the world sees these images, that they know these stories of Palestinians, what they've been going through, not just for the last 15 months, because as you say, this all didn't start on October 7th. What happened on October 7th was terrible. It has affected so many people since then, of course, but this has a long history, and these types of images, the stories that you hear from Palestinians, from prisoners, are not stories that are often broadcast in international media. So hearing this is vital to getting out the history of the Palestinian cause and where it's headed.
I mean, absolutely. Look, every one of these prisoners is a human story, is a family that's broken, a family that's waiting, eager, without information. Let's compare that to how the world handled the story of the prisoners taken by Hamas. We got to learn their names. We got to learn about their families and what they did. Oftentimes, we got told lies that tried to cover their association with the Israeli army to make them seem like civilians. Meanwhile, nothing was being said or spoken about the Palestinian prisoners who have been held for years and years and years. Children, women, not accused of any crime, simply held because the occupying power can go in and collect people randomly. Today, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the European press are writing about the Israeli hostages being released. And as an aside, they'll give away some numbers about Israel releasing, get this, convicted criminals who are supposed to spend their lives in jail for having conducted attacks against Israel or Israelis. I mean, this is how the world, the Western world frames it. And so it is fundamentally important to have these images and these stories being told as you're doing.
Is this going to change, though, Israel's actions in the occupied West Bank and in Gaza going forward? Because as this is all happening, as we continue to speak about this, the daily raids in the occupied West Bank are continuing. As Palestinian prisoners are released, there are more who are being detained and arrested.
I don't see any change in conduct by the Israelis. Look, I predicted soon after October 7 that the Palestinians would achieve a strategic victory and Israel would suffer a strategic defeat. You're seeing it. The reason Netanyahu today decided he is going to stop the buses, containing Palestinians from returning, isn't because of anything Hamas did. He could not handle the images of Hamas and Qassam fighters coming out looking clean in nearly new vehicles, handing over prisoners in the areas of operation where they were. I mean, this is a defeat. I was just in South Lebanon a couple of days ago after the Israelis left. I went to the front villages, and I saw the level of depravity that the Israelis engaged in after the ceasefire, not before, because they were under pressure before the ceasefire. This is not a Israel is not headed in the right direction. Yeah, they'll continue to take it out on civilians in the West Bank and Jenin and Ramallah. However, these are the indicators of a state in trouble, a state that suffered a strategic defeat, and this is how it's going to respond.
But could it also be argued that Netanyahu would see these displays from Hamas, from Islamic Jihad, as a reason to go back into Gaza, to continue its military offensive there, because it has not been able to root out what they describe as these terrorist elements? So this could be another justification, possibly, from Israel?
Well, Netanyahu doesn't need a justification. The new president of the United States has already indicated that, in not certain terms, but this idea that Gazans should be transferred to Jordan and Egypt, the idea of a Judea and Samaria that is recognized by the United States not as occupied territory in the West Bank, but as the biblical right of the Jewish people. And so the short answer to your question is it may, but Netanyahu doesn't really need that excuse. However, Israel was not doing well in Gaza. I mean, you have to, when you do the analysis, it can't be based on the number of dead civilians, on the number of civilians murdered by the Israelis, because armies can easily kill civilians. It's what did they achieve, and they achieved nothing. Were there without the hostages? It's not like they limited their operations because there were hostages being held. Israel went all out, and they could not destroy Hamas. They killed a lot of people. But again, that is not the objective of military operations. The objective is to destroy Hamas, to break its ability to resist, to break the Palestinian spirit of resistance. And as you can see, I'm looking on the screen. It is not. It is more alive than ever. They are encouraged, and I think you're going to continue to see resistance until this illegal occupation ends.
Haytham Faraj, thank you so much for bringing us your perspective there from Beirut, retired Marine Corps. Thanks very much, Haytham. And we continue